Hello, and welcome to Tempered, a show where we will share the experiences of Christian women who have faced hardship and emerged stronger. I am Jenny Cochran, your host. Tempered can be defined as softened or moderated or seasoned to bring to a proper or desired state. It can be being brought through fires that have fashioned and formed us for the good. In our show, we will deal with many topics that may affect Christian women in the 21st century, topics that can change us, temper us, bring us to a new place spiritually. Welcome to Tempered. I hope you will enjoy our show. Welcome to Tempered. We have a special guest with us today who is here to share her story, a story that really affects our whole nation. Our nation is struggling with the loss of our children. And this story today very much addresses this loss, this grief. We have with us Karen Davenport. She's a very special friend, and she has an amazing story that she's going to share. Let's begin, Karen. Tell us about yourself.
Our family lives in Ooltewah. My husband Kevin, and I have been members at East Ridge for over 25 years. We have 3 children, Michael, Matthew, and Madison. I've been a Christian for over 50 years, and we've raised our children in the church, and I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been on plenty of medical mission campaigns, loved every minute of it. I've always prayed to be a good example to others as well as my children.
What's your careers? You are a nurse practitioner.
I'm a nurse practitioner. I work in sleep medicine currently at Memorial Hospital, but I've held numerous positions as an ICU nurse, an ER nurse. Right. I've worked for several surgeons, and
that's where your mission trips came in.
That's where the mission trips came in, yeah.
Yes. Well, today we're going to talk about your journey through loss, through grief, and your journey through reshaping your life into something for God's purpose. Mm-hmm. Before everything changed, what did life feel like for you?
Sometimes it was autopilot. You know, you run on autopilot and you think you're in control of things, and I've always felt God's blessings. I've always felt, sometimes I felt closer to God than others.
Sure.
But I've learned in my last 60 years that we deceive ourselves, that really God is not the only one in control. And that was the biggest lesson that I've learned.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe your faith in all these previous years?
I think constantly evolving, maybe, rolling with the punches, it's been said to me before that we're either getting ready to walk through a trial, we're walking through a trial, or we're coming out of a trial. And
I have heard that.
I firmly believe that. I've felt this over and over, but I've never felt this weight before.
Okay. Let's transition gently. Tell us about the day that you lost your precious Matthew.
Well, we were asleep, and we got a phone call at 5:30 in the morning, and it's one that never, as a parent, you never want to receive. All I could remember is Matthew, CPR in progress, and meet us at the hospital. He was staying actually with friends, and time froze. I couldn't think. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. I just started praying as Kevin started driving to the hospital. I was in shock. I only remember bits and pieces of things at that point. Matthew had a bad habit of dipping chewing tobacco as he would go to sleep. And that was just a habit that he had picked up from wherever, school, friends, whatever. He realized that he said it helped him to sleep, and it helped him to combat his anxiety. He struggled with anxiety and depression. And he was actually on 2 prescriptions for those medicines, for the 2 medications for those conditions. And at the time, we were led to believe that he fell asleep with just a dip in his mouth, and he aspirated, which, would be sucking it into your lungs and getting choked. So it was just beyond. I don't have any words for what I felt when I went to the hospital and I saw him laying there, and I collapsed over his body. And it's hard to believe the child we had hugged the night before at dinner was laying there on the stretcher, and when the doctor was saying that Matthew was gone, I wanted to just punch him in the nose, and I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want
Anger.
I was so mad. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. I felt gutted. I felt part of me died that day.
Sure.
I wanted to be with my son. My life would never be the same.
Never. How long did it take to understand exactly what had happened? Did you understand pretty quickly, or did
we really didn't understand right away? We didn't know what actually had transpired until we got an autopsy result back, and in the autopsy, I read the word mitragynine or Kratom, and I'm a nurse practitioner, but I didn't know what that was. And it's an over-the-counter supplement that caused a lethal interaction with doctor-prescribed medications. And that was what led to the respiratory depression and the cardiac arrest. But we had no idea that day that that's what had happened.
Okay. So it took time for you to understand.
It took weeks. Yeah,
it took weeks. Okay. And with all your heart, Matthew had no idea that this Kratom.
Yeah, it was suggested to him by a friend, for his anxiety, because he was looking for an all-natural way,
and this is labeled natural, I
natural
believe.
Supplement, right? But natural does not mean safe.
Right.
And, even though I had worked in medicine for over 30 years, I'd never heard of this supplement. And when I started looking into it, it hit me that Matthew had been deceived. John 8:44 tells us that Jesus defines Satan as the father of lies, and I believe that to be true. If you read about Kratom online, it looks benign, but you start doing a little more research, and the research tells an entirely different story.
We need to learn these. We need to learn all about this substance and probably many others out there. As a mother, you must have struggled with all the whys. Why my son? Why did this happen? Why now?
Mm-hmm.
How did you deal with all those? Did those whys come up?
In the months that followed, the why was so heavy that I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to put one foot in front of the other. I felt like a shell of a person. And when I would go to church, I would go in at the very last minute, and I would leave right before people could get to me and hug me and love on me, because it was so painful. I mean, everybody loved me, and I wanted to love them back, but it was just so hard to walk in those shoes at that moment.
Absolutely.
Everybody was so kind, but my sisters were fabulous, but I was just in a bad spot.
Well, you were dealing with the shock of loss and the weight of unanswered questions.
And I thought to myself at one point, how could anybody get through this without the family of God?
Mm-hmm.
How could anybody walk this journey without having that support around them, because I leaned into my family and friends at church. I mean, I still do even now.
Right. Loss has a way of affecting every aspect of our life. So in those early months, what was the grief like? How in this world did you function day by day, or even hour by hour, both spiritually and emotionally and mentally? How did you do this?
You know, in the early months, I wanted to avoid everybody and everything. I withdrew, I isolated. I would end up crying so hard that I couldn't see. And then one day I remembered something that Charlie had said at Matthew's funeral, and that was, look up. When you need God, look up. And when I looked up, there was this beautiful bird in the sky. I don't know if it was a hawk or an eagle, but it was sailing through the air and it was gliding so freely. And it made me think that, you know, Matthew was free from his chains of anxiety and depression and all the suffering that he had done on this earth. He was free and he was in our Savior's arms. And there was no more depression, no more anxiety. He was safe. And I just started to shake and cry, and, you know, so I could barely see to drive, which is usually when I do all my crying is when I'm in the car. But
Oh, did you feel a pressure to be strong for Kevin and Michael and Maddie? How did you handle that? I think that's something I would feel, a pressure to be strong for them when I wasn't able to be.
Well,
that strength.
That's a great point, because, you know, everybody grieves so differently.
Yes.
And I was so far in the pit of grief myself that I couldn't think of anybody else. I really wasn't thinking of anyone except myself. And then one day I found my daughter laying across Matthew's bed with her head buried in his pillow, sobbing into his pillow. And it hit me that I had not been there for her. And I just laid down beside her and put my arm around her, and we just cried together.
That was probably the best thing you could have done at that moment.
I didn't know anything else to do. I mean,
but at that point, she felt your strength,
Yeah.
that arm around you. And she knew at that point that you were feeling the same thing she was feeling.
Sometimes you have no words.
Right. Well, many people, after a great loss like this and going through grief, many people experience a shift in their relationship with God. How did your faith change over the next weeks, months, and months?
Once I found my grief group.
So you found a grief group.
I found a grief group, and it really helped a lot.
Good.
But I felt so alone and so distant from God. I had always known God was there, but I didn't understand. I felt broken into pieces.
Sure.
You know, and I did ask the question, why me? Why my son? You know, my faith was being tested, I felt like.
Mm-hmm.
And one day when I was praying on the way to work, I was reminded that I was made in the Lord's image. And I imagined how easily that he could be asking the same questions to me. Why? He sent his son for me. Jesus purposefully died for me and my sins. And I didn't deserve that. And so I that kind of was a aha moment, I guess. You know, when I felt the strain at the greatest, I think I probably responded right after that and just asked for prayers and just for the strength to get through, because it was just so heavy.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Well, somewhere along the way, there was a shift in you. And you began to feel a need to do something. You needed to find some kind of purpose to make this right. Although nothing could make it right. But there was a shift, and you began to reach out and feel a need to move forward.
You know, I thought about the why me, and then all these stories that we hear all of our lifetime about Moses and about Sarah laughing and about Jonah running and Esther saying why me, and you know all these people. And I was thinking I'm not special. I'm not these Bible characters. But I remembered all those stories, and I started questioning my faith, and then asking God, you know, is there something that I need to be doing, you know, to make things better? And there had been a tornado in 2020, an EF4 in Cookeville, Tennessee, and there was a family that was grieving after the loss of a child.
In that tornado.
And they had started a foundation that actually helped families that had similar losses with children. And I thought it was amazing how, and they were so encouraging, how they took that tragedy and they did something with it for good. And members of the church. And also I just thought, well, maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know. But and it gave me some solace, you know, in the death of my son, that if I could do something positive, that it was going to affect others. And so that's kind of what I was thinking.
So what gave you the courage to it had to be so overwhelming. And what gave you that courage to start doing something? And did you ever question, am I the right person for this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I still question that even today, you know. I just felt like I needed to do something, and maybe because I was a nurse and I understood some of the language, and I understood that education was the most important thing that we could do. We have to educate our children to make smart decisions. Matthew had made a mistake, and I didn't want other people to do that.
To make that same mistake unknowingly.
And so I guess a sense of duty and urgency just kind of washed over me. And not many people knew what Kratom was at the time and how deadly it is. And I didn't even know. But when I started doing research and exposing things, I didn't want anybody else to make the same mistake again. You know, I just
absolutely.
I didn't want Satan to destroy anybody else's families.
Well, you've been before our legislators, both in Tennessee and now in Georgia also. What was it like preparing and telling them about this awful substance?
Well, I have a great friend, a great Christian friend. Her name is Carol, and she helped me. She's an excellent writer, and she helped me craft a document that I read. She's Matthew's second mom, basically. Matthew would go to her when he couldn't talk to me about things. He would confide in her, and she knew him as well, if not better than me, in certain ways, you know. And so she helped me write a letter that told about Matthew and about his character and about our loss and about how we'd come upon this and how dangerous this substance is. It's illegally imported into the United States, but it turns up on every street corner.
It's all down our main street, right? The street I travel. It's there. It's on the windows of the stores that sell it. So it's illegal for it to be imported into our country, but it's in all these stores being sold as a natural
supplement
substance.
And it's there's a loophole somewhere. You know, in 2016, the FDA had a chance to ban it, and they, for some reason, didn't ban it. I don't know if it was money or power or greed or what.
Politics.
I don't know, but they didn't ban it. And if they had banned it, then my son would still be here today.
Right.
But, you know,
what was it like to go before the Tennessee state legislature and the Georgia state? What was that like? Was it scary? You had to speak to these representatives?
It was, but at the same
Sure.
time, you know, I felt that I had God right there with me. I just felt that He gave me the strength that I needed to, and I could read a letter, and
Okay.
I got their attention.
Good.
And so even if I could get the attention of one person, save one life, you know, it was worth.
How did it feel when you walked out of there?
Well, it was great until I found out, you know, we have to come back. And,
Oh.
you know, it has to process. There's so many processes,
steps
you have to go through. But this year, we hope to get it past the Senate and the House, and then onto the governor's desk to sign it, so that it's banned in the state of Tennessee.
Okay, so that's your plan going forward.
That's our plan going forward.
That.
Yeah. So, you know, you have two choices: to fight, or just to turn back and just crawl under a rock and not move. And I had to trust in God and lean on Him like I'd never done before.
Absolutely.
And I had to understand that maybe God was using the situation, you know, and that wasn't all about me.
Scripture talks about being placed in a certain place for a reason. Esther 4:14 comes to mind, where Scripture says, "Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Did you feel that for your own life?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, with all of my imperfections, I kept thinking to myself, you know, God, I'm not special. I'm not anybody. I'm not anything. I mean, and maybe I saw the strength in all my sisters, you know, at church. You know, I saw the strength in my best friend when she grabbed my phone the same day that Matthew passed, and she held it, and she
took charge of your phone.
She took charge, and she was quiet. She just sat there with me, Lisa, and I'll just never forget how she made me feel. And I see how those small acts of kindness all add up, and how big of an impact you can have on someone else's life just by doing something that you may think is very small, but
yes,
in their eyes it's huge, because you don't know the burden they bear, that they carry.
How do you understand this idea that God is going to use you? God's going to use your place in life right now. God's going to use your position and your experience. How do you grasp that?
I don't know. I know that Psalms 34:18 says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted, and He saves those that are crushed in spirit." And so I had to keep repeating that to myself, and to lean heavily on my sweet sisters, and see all the strength that my sisters portray around me. The exhausted foster mom that keeps bringing the kids every single Sunday and Wednesday, and I see the cancer survivors and the caretakers, and I see the underappreciated teachers and others that have lost loved ones, and I see the trials that other people face and they go through, and I think we're closest to God when we're on our knees.
Right.
So,
you know, through this, I've thought of Moses and his imperfections, and I've thought of Jacob and his imperfections, and David and his, and look what God used them to do. Look what God accomplished for His purpose through those men. We all have our imperfections, and yet you were surrounded with wonderful people who probably thought they were doing nothing, or thought they were doing so little.
Absolutely.
And yet God used them.
Absolutely.
For accomplishing something with you and with Kevin. and with Maddie and Michael. And God uses all of us.
And it just goes on
knows
and on.
that. Yes, it just keeps going on and on. God has used you. And I believe with all my heart, He's going to continue to use you. He's going to continue to give you the strength that you need to continue. What has all this taught you about surrender and trust?
We do have to let go and let God, because we don't have control over our situations. And even though we like to think we have a lot of control, we simply do not have control. And we just have to just pray that our lives are used for His service. So we just keep trying, keep walking. I always would tell my kids, just keep swimming. Just keep walking.
And sometimes it's just keeping your head above water.
Keeping your head above the water.
Sometimes it's just making yourself get out of bed that day, putting one step forward, getting through one day at a time. God doesn't ask us to get through the next month or the next year. He just asks us
minute by minute,
hour by hour,
day by
day. And He gives us the strength for that.
And you feel that through other Christians. I felt that over and over and over and over. And it's so encouraging.
Yes. There are people out there who have lost a child like you. Maybe the circumstances are different. Social media has been on trial this week, and parents who lost their children because of the addiction of social media. We have many, many thousands of parents who have lost children because they took something that was laced with fentanyl and they didn't know. This is something our nation is struggling with. For those out there, Karen, that have lost a child in some circumstance similar, what would you want to say to them?
The battle belongs to the Lord. That we are in a spiritual warfare with Satan. And I believe that with all my heart.
I believe it with all my heart.
And I think we have to just keep fighting and keep walking and know that God surrounds us with His love.
He does. And His strength.
And
His peace. And His power. Absolutely. Thank you for being here, for your honesty, for sharing your deepest feelings, for sharing the story of your precious Matthew. I knew Matthew. I've known him for years. And
taught him in first grade.
I taught him in Sunday school, in kindergarten, and I taught him in first grade in school. He and Maddie, being twins, I had them both. And he was a precious, precious child. But thank you for being here and sharing this story. And I know it will touch many. And I feel like many will hear your words and gain strength from your words.
I hope so.
I'd like to close reading Psalm 66.
Okay.
Psalm 66, 10 through 12. For you, O God, have tested me. You have refined us as silver is refined. You brought us into the net. You laid affliction on our backs. You have caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to rich and fulfillment. I'm not sure you're there at that rich and rich fulfillment yet, But God is going to bring you to that place, and He's going to be with you every step of the way. And I hope many who have lost that precious child see this tempered episode and hear your words and gain strength. Thank you so much for being here. We love you.
Love you too.
I have walked through shadows I did not choose, carried the weight of 1,000 wounds. Every tear carved truth in me, every loss shaped who